Hey everyone, welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture. I am your host, Andrew Davis. And before I introduce my guest, I would like to say that if you like something, you need to support it and you need to financially support it. Whether it is this show, a wrestling show, a wrestler, or even corporate media or products, I personally don't care because you have to support what you love. And if you don't support it, it will disappear. And so if you want to see more of it and you want it to continue, well, you know what to do. Open up your wallets and actually spend money and support people and the things you love. But enough about the PSA. And when it does disappear and you didn't support it, don't come pitching to me, is my point. But enough of my PSA, as I was stating, because I have with me professional wrestler Armani Kayos. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I am excited because I came on to discovering you through Limitless during pretty much the start of the entire pandemic. Nobody had any idea what was going on, and well, that's how I came to discover you. And pretty much, we're going to talk about two or three, maybe four promotions at the most here.
Okay.
But before we get into all of that, I am curious how you got into wrestling because you are fairly new into wrestling.
Yeah, so I didn't officially become like a wrestling fan until about like 2015. I was a senior in high school. Um, and before that, I would watch like Total Divas here and there. And I was like, "Oh, this is kind of like interesting." um, and then there was a scene where Summer Rae had like slapped Natalia, and I was like, I love this. Like, let me like go on YouTube and like check it, like check out the actual wrestling. If I was like super entertained just with like the reality TV portion of it. Um, and I remember looking up like Summer Rae WWE, and I watched like a few of her matches, and I was like, oh okay, she kind of loses all the time. Like, I don't really want to be a fan of a loser. Um, so I would like check out like everyone else on Total Divas, like, on YouTube. And then, I, like, stumbled upon, like, the Bella Twins, like, doing, like, the switch, and I was like, "I love them." And then here I am.
This is what's so interesting is that obviously everybody comes into wrestling differently. I wasn't a wrestling fan till high school in ninth grade, and then I just discovered it. I turned on, Raw and Impact, and it was the John
Uh-huh.
Cena Edge feud. And obviously, I might be a little bit older than you, but that's the whole thing. Because I was graduating college in 2015.
Oh,
But I mean, I'm not that much older than you in reality, but um it's so interesting. So, how did you go from being a fan saying, "Hey, this is cool, and I kind of want to do this," to getting trained, getting into a ring? Because that's a big jump from going from a fan to actually becoming a wrestler.
yeah.
It's a small jump. It's a small jump, right? Just a little tiny one, right?
It's a jump. Um, I had a friend who, like, always, like, talked about wanting to, like, do wrestling, and I was like, I mean, I guess we can try." Um So then we just signed up to do like a fantasy camp at the New England Pro Wrestling Academy. And after I was like, I think this is like something I want to like do. And literally right after, I went to the bank and then I went back to school and I gave them my money and I was like, I want to sign up.
So let's even talk about that because obviously you got hooked. You showed up, you did it, and then you're like, "Oh man, this is for me." And so, what was this like for you training? Because obviously, wrestling training is very interesting. New England has gone through many versions. There are many different individuals who have trained, and so how is this broken up physically, psychologically, even mentally, and all that fun stuff, and even understanding the business as well? Because I think that's a big thing now that people are now starting to realize that the wrestling business is beyond the wrestling business, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. Like at first it was like, so I wasn't really like an athletic person like before this. Like I didn't do anything athletic. Like I ran track in high school, but it was like, it wasn't like track. um, so this was like pretty much the first like athletic thing I did. Um, and like, having to do like, multiple push-ups and like squats and all that stuff. It was hard. It still is hard. But I met Paris Vandell through wrestling, and, like, I don't know, we met and, like, we kinda just clicked, like, right there and then. So she, like, made it a lot easier, like, getting through, like, the blow ups and all that other type of stuff. And, like, if I ever had anyone I needed to talk to, like, I knew she was always there.
Yeah, yeah. To even talk about this as well, because obviously, there are people who have trained together. I think it's very, famous that the class of John Cena, Randy Orton, I think Lesnar was in that class. It was like the year before. There's
Mhm,
also the famous thing with Kazarian, Chris Daniels, John Cena, Samoa Joe, and that out in Cali. And so it's very interesting who you come up with in wrestling, who you meet in wrestling, who you start off with, and even who you, I guess, have lifelong friendships or even year-long friendships with.
mhm.
And so, what was this like too? Because that's a big, I think, mental thing as well. Where obviously you had Paris with you, and she was great, and obviously the two of you were toughing it out during training, and I think that also helps as well because wrestling
Yeah.
can be a very lonely business.
Yeah, I don't know, just having someone that you know that, like, you can just lean on, like, whenever you need it. Like, I it's always like, if I needed something, I know I could go to her, and if she needed something, she knows that she can always come to me, and it's like it just makes it easier getting through the whole, like, trying to get up there.
Yeah, no, no, I completely get it, and I think it's something that wrestlers don't talk about is that your friendships in the business and who to lean on and who is supportive. Because let's be realistic, when you're in training and you're getting suplexed, it hurts. There's no, I mean, we could say a lot of things about wrestling, but it hurts. I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't been suplexed. I don't want to be suplexed. Nothing against your profession, but I much prefer to watch it on
Yeah.
TV than I do to be in a ring. I would much prefer to be on this side and be the interviewer than be the guy getting clotheslined or
Mhm.
suplex or whatever, getting a 619 exactly, or a death by Bella, which we're going to talk about, I promise. But because it's so interesting, and then obviously, I mean, the stuff that I know you from is Limitless, and so that's what I want to talk about because that's what really I think kicked off your career
Oh.
and was the starting point for you, and you really started to get noticed. And
Mhm.
so, how did you come into Limitless? Because that's how I know you. I know you from Higher Society. I personally think Higher Society is the funniest thing ever. I think it is just so freaking in your face, and we're just better than you. And I mean, I'm full disclosure. My favorite, villain of all time is the guy from One Piece, Gold, because gold is power, and it's the entire idea that money and being rich
Yeah.
means you're better than everybody else. And I love the concept. So, how did you come into Limitless and even form that team with Paris? Because brilliant, just so fucking brilliant.
Uh, I think me and Paris always knew that we just, like, wanted to be a team. Um, and then we heard about, like, Limitless, like, doing, like, tapings during the pandemic, and we were like, "Okay, we need to get in on those." And that's kinda just, like, so we, like, reached out and was like, like, "We're a team, like, we'd love to, like, come up and, like, do the tapings," and we did.
So let's even talk about that because what was this like? Because obviously, this taping stuff, nobody knew any idea what COVID was. Nobody had any idea how long it was going to last for. Nobody knew exactly how it was supposed to go down. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, Logan Black sort of gave me a heads up and explained that a lot of those tapings were done over, either you did all your matches in the same day for the season, or you did it over 2 days, or they split it up into two groups, essentially, I think but they might have
Yeah.
done like 9 at a time.
Uh-huh.
And so, what was that like too? Because it's a weird situation to wrestle not in front of an audience. It's weird to wrestle multiple matches. It's weird to not exactly know how it's all going to fit into, I guess, the whole theme of Limitless and what they're doing. And this is all before, and we're going to dive into a few of the matches because they're very cool, some of them. But what was that like for you coming into that? Because it's a very different experience than I think anybody truly understands or prior to COVID, because that
Yeah.
never existed before.
Um, I mean, it was kind of weird just, like, not wrestling in front of a crowd because So I was still fairly kind of new during this time. So like I probably had like maybe like 20 matches under my belt. Um,
Which
so
is like
like
nothing. It's really nothing.
yeah. So like going from like, doing like some shows in front of crowds and then like having to wrestle in like front of the other wrestlers. It was kind of weird because it was like, okay, now I thought it was more pressure because like now you have to like try and get like the genuine reaction out of like the wrestlers. Um, but it was also like I just went out there and did whatever I knew I could do. And yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, also, and look, you know, it is. I mean, I obviously have a lot of friends who are podcasters, and they run interview shows, and I get a little nervous when they're watching me, and I'm doing something, and I have a big high profile guest because I'm like, oh man, they know every little pitfall that's gonna
Yeah.
happen, and they're gonna, they're not gonna criticize me, but they spot things, and when I'm watching them and it's high profile and it's like I can spot pitfalls, and even when I'm watching other people's interviews, I know when something isn't working, or I kind
Yeah.
of can predict where something's going, or I can say, oh man, that person dug themselves into a pitfall and then they dug themselves out, and I can see it. And so what is that like for you too? Because I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, that wrestlers critique wrestlers harder than fans critique wrestlers.
Oh yeah. Uh I think it's hard. I think well, it was like kind of hard to have to wrestle in front of the wrestlers because it's like, okay, so like if I do something like that's not correct, they'll all know. Like if I'm like nervous, they'll be able to tell that I'm nervous. Like, I don't know. I think it's just harder to hide things from like wrestlers than it is from the fans.
Yeah, and then also it's just the idea that, I mean, it's hard to, I think, surprise wrestlers sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too, that I think that it's sometimes hard to surprise somebody, and it's also the idea that there's people in that locker room that obviously you respect, and you don't want to make yourself look bad in front of them either. And that's a whole bigger thing. It gets super complicated. It's kind of like if you're doing, I used to do anime panels, and sometimes there'd be somebody prominent in the audience, and I'm like, oh snap! Like if I mess up this panel, I don't want to look bad in front of them. And
Mhm.
so I think that that's something that's just in the back of my head a little bit. But obviously, I do want to talk about some of the matches that you and Paris had in Limitless, and as you know, the higher society. And obviously, one of the first matches was with Love Doug, and the three of you teamed up against Becca, CJ Cruz, and Ricky Archer. And
Oh.
that's old school. That feels like
Yeah.
10 years ago, right?
Yeah, yeah. I love that match. It's one of my favorite matches from the tapings.
Because I mean, it's the Love Doug, and you can't hate Love Doug, and it was just an enjoyable match, and it was one of those first things that was coming out. And I think that also people are like, what is the road exactly, and what is, pretty much Limitless doing? And so I think there was a lot of experimentation as well
Yeah.
in these matches and the early stuff. And so what was this like, just like coming out and doing it, and because this was really when the higher society was starting to form.
I believe like this was like the first like higher society presentation to like the wrestling world. um
And so it's just one of those things. And obviously, I mean, you and just Paris have amazing chemistry from the promos all the way to the actual
yeah.
wrestling, just to the attitude. It's not even so much the wrestling. I feel it's just the attitude is really just so perfect for that team.
Like this is like people would ask if that's like actually us. Like higher society is like who we are in like person.
So let me ask this, because one of the things that Chris Jericho said is that the best wrestling, personalities are your own personality turned up to a 10. And, I find that my best interviews and my best presentations are on topics that definitely hit my core. So
Mhm.
I love talking about money. I love enjoying money, everything about money, the whole concept of money. And when I am lecturing on money in any particular fashion, I tend to have a better presentation. And
Okay.
I can't explain like why, but it's just one of those things where, and when I'm educating people on money too, I thoroughly enjoy it because it's just like who I am, and I enjoy the topic, and
Mhm.
versing something that is fun to talk about, but I don't like believing in my core, if that makes sense. Or it's not like a die, like I'm gonna die on the cross type issue for me. So what is this like for you when you're embodying this, and you're still embodying it to some degree,
Yeah.
with a singles wrestler, but even still, what is that like? Because it feels real, even from the TV. And I think that's something that people pick up on.
So I don't really like this is like when people ask me, "Oh, like what's your character?" I really can't answer that because it's like I feel like I don't really have a character because I just do what I think I would do in real life. But make it more like extra. Like I feel like I'm already an extra person, so like I feel like it just fits in wrestling.
It's just this epic. It's just epic. Such a good answer in so many ways. But even going further into this, because one of the things I think Limitless did really well with the two of you is that you had some really great matches, and there was a particular match that I think there was two actually that really I think put you on the map. It was that Anthony Green and Ava Everett match
Mm,
that was amazing, and obviously there was a lot of emotion going on between Anthony Green and Ava Everett. Obviously AG was going to WWE at that time, and this was his sort of farewell tour to the New England scene,
mhm.
and it was a big spot. I feel for the two of you coming in, and what was that like? Because here you have Ava Everett talking about how she wants to wrestle with I think her fiance or her boyfriend now. I think fiance. I don't know if they're married right now, but neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But you have that emotion going on. You have his farewell tour, and then you have you two going on, and you're bringing a pretty good fight to them. And so, what was that like? Because it made you seem legit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so I feel like I don't know how to say this. Like, we were always seen like as like, just the gimmicks. But like I feel like that match, like we wanted to showcase that like we're more just like a gimmick. Like when push comes to shove, like we can show up and show out.
I also feel that at that point, Anthony Green was really giving back a lot. Where I think that match, if he wasn't going to WWE, I don't know if he would have given back so much because he was on, the Limitless scene and, the New England scene for a while. And I feel like his entire farewell tour throughout the entire road was him giving back.
Hmm.
And so, what was that like for you too? Because obviously, it was pretty evident he was going to WWE. Um, and so, what was that like knowing that obviously he's now back on the Indies, but even getting the opportunity to wrestle him before he goes too, because that's a big deal now too, is that you never know when you're gonna have your last match with somebody. And,
Yeah.
and now WWE's under a whole new management, and I think they're gonna be pulling from the Indies again pretty soon. And so, what is that like for you, knowing that you were having this match and all that stuff going on, and that you're at the impetus of your career in the beginning?
um, I don't know. For me,
Because
I
it
always
kind
just
of
like
made you to some degree.
what happened?
It kind of made you a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, yeah. Um, for me, I always trying to like whenever I'm like wrestling someone, I always like do my best to make sure that like, I do my best in the match. Just so that like if someone's like, oh, like I see that you wrestled that Armani Chaos person, like how are they? They can say, okay, that person was good. So like people would want to work with me. So like, yeah.
And then the other match that I think really made you was the match against Waves and Curls, and they were just starting to get big,
Yeah.
and they were right, I think, where you guys were, and that's what's
Yeah. We were
crazy is
both like,
that legitimately you guys were running parallel, coming into Limitless, and nobody knew who Waves and Curls were, nobody knew who you guys were, and that was another match that I think was really a big, pop for the both of you guys and
mhm.
both teams. And so, what was that like too? Because it's just one of those things that I think is I don't know how to describe it. Like it was almost like a breeding ground for talent at that point.
I could say the same. Like two new teams coming into like Limitless Wrestling, both having like a point to prove. Like I feel like there's no better matchup.
And it was, I mean, I think it was just fantastic. I think it was just a launching point, and then obviously going through Delmy, EXO, and Ashley Vox, and I love Delmy. She's been on my show like 3 or 4 times at this point. And obviously, I would love to get Ashley Vox on. I think it'd be fascinating to have a conversation with her, because she's great too. But what was this like too? Because Team C Stars is also very much a New England staple.
Yeah.
And so,
I
because
remember
it's like you had a crazy freaking like taping that you're just like, hey, can we just show up? Like,
I remember when, like, the match graphic for this match came out and, like, just going on Twitter and, like, seeing, like, everyone already saying, "Oh, higher society ain't gonna get this one," like, like, that's just how people thought, and then we actually won, and, like, people were like, "Oh, shit," like, they actually did it.
yeah. So what is that like? Because this is one of the things that I think has changed in wrestling is that Twitter is actually a really important thing now. And the hype on Twitter, people criticizing on Twitter, people booing you on Twitter. Criticizing is not necessarily the right word, but even booing you or saying, "Oh man, they cheated. Oh man, I hate those guys." But they don't hate you as a person; they hate you as a team because you're the heels.
Yeah.
But even the fact that you're getting that pop, right? Because it's not like somebody says, "I hope you go die in a ditch tonight." They're saying you're a cheater, and I hope they get smashed in the ring. I hope that they get a quick rolled up, and then that stuff. And that they lose hard, right? But
Yeah.
what is this like? Because that reaction was felt on Twitter, because I know, because I was tweeting about it. And what is that like? Because now that tells other, promotions, hey, you know, this is a team that draws. It draws attention. It draws exposure, and that's just as important as what's going on in the ring, I feel.
Mhm. Um, I like the interactions on Twitter because I always, like, interact back. Like, I don't know. Sometimes I just say stupid shit to people just to say. Um, but I think it's fun, like, getting to interact with people, like, on Twitter and stuff.
And then obviously the Davey End match was crazy. That match was just
Oh,
insane.
the handicap one.
She scares me. She
Oh,
legitly scares me.
she's a tough cookie. She's one tough she's one
I
tough
mean, I mean, it was brilliant though, because you have higher society, and then you have her, and she's just like freaking going on a tear at that point. And yeah, like you got like your like Upper East Side, like oh, there's so much like just the clash of styles, like, was just so good, and even just the hype for it, and
Mhm.
oh, it was epic, dude. It was epic. It was just, but she scares me to this day, and she was on my show too, which is crazy, but she still scares me. But yeah, so, and then obviously, I mean, you and Paris were all throughout WWR plus, and obviously, Team C stars. I think the outfielders. I don't know what they're called now. Is it Hatfield and McCoy? I think, or I'm not even sure what they're called anymore. And then you also had the Kings of the District, which is Il O'Neill and Jordan Blade, and
Mhm.
that is a sick team.
Mhm.
That is arguably one of the best indie tag teams ever. And I saw them win in prime time. That X Division match, that was crazy. So what was that like, really even getting to wrestle in WWR plus and getting to really have, this stuff going on and facing, obviously, I think one of the best tag teams out there right now, the Kings of the District, because it adds legitimacy, I feel.
Mhm. Um, so getting on WWR Plus was a cool experience. We were like, all right, more eyes can see higher society now. So now we really have to, like, level up our, like, performance. Um, and then yeah, just getting to wrestle all these different types of teams, like, was fun.
Because it's interesting, because obviously Limitless was drawing a lot of attention at this point, because obviously COVID was hitting and there wasn't much stuff going on,
Yeah.
and people were home, and well, it was streaming on IWTV. And this is one of the things that I think really helped IWTV, is that Limitless was there. And then I think Beyond and WWR Plus was somewhat up and running. And obviously, there was a lot of eyes on wrestling. I know that I watched a boatload of wrestling during COVID, and I was
Mhm.
watching things almost every night because there was stuff going on. And so, what was this like for you? Because obviously, you're brand new, but I think you, for whatever reason, luck or whatnot, you came in right when this was starting to get really, really, really big. And one of the things that I was speaking with somebody else about is the place I think for wrestlers right now is streaming services and being on shows that are not pre-taped but stream or have episodes debuting. And so what was that like for you? Because clearly Limitless, The Road was working. And then on top of that, you're now in WWR Plus, and that led to a bunch of other stuff, I feel. And so what was
Yeah.
this like for you? Because you were really being seen. You know what I mean? The saying is being seen, not heard.
Mhm.
And you were being seen, I feel.
I always ask, like, if, like, the whole, like, pandemic didn't happen, like, where would my career be right now? Um, but I think being able to do the road tapings and, like, having, like, everyone at home just watching wrestling because, they can't go and see it was, like, super helpful. And then to be on WWR and, like, being able to, like, stream, uh, to be seen on, like, IWTV and stuff like that, I feel like really helped for people to, like, see who Armani Chaos is.
Because it's the idea that obviously at this point, IWTV has a very good reputation
Mhm.
as far as putting out really good shows. Limitless has a good reputation. Beyond, which is WWR Plus, has a good reputation.
Mhm.
And so it really helps that when you're there and you're not there for one show and then you're never heard of again, but you're on 6, 7, 9 episodes of The Road. You're on a few, episodes or I guess pay-per-views or events. I don't know how they're supposed to be called here, but if WWR Plus, you start becoming a stable, and people say, okay, this person is a draw. They can actually wrestle. They can actually do something, and they're putting on killer matches. And then people come out and they're like, oh yeah, I'm tweeting about this, and then they follow you on Twitter
Yeah.
and then interacting with you, and then that leads to more things, and it goes on to an algorithm snowball. And so it just expands. And look, it's happened to me and it happens to other people too. Is that, and so that's the other thing. And then you get called back, and then something else occurs. And then obviously, companies like, oh, snap, this person actually gets, 500,000 impressions on Twitter. Well, maybe we should have them on our show.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's fascinating. And then obviously, you're now a singles wrestler, and you and Paris apparently had a fight. And
Yes.
I guess somebody wasn't hired enough to be in this society anymore. Um, brilliant, brilliant breakup. But what was that about? Because that's insane. I mean, the build up to that thing was crazy. The fact that you guys are playing it off, just the way it was played off, and oh my god. And I don't think it's done yet. I don't think it's done yet. I think there's a lot of bad blood that has to be fixed.
Uh, so I think it's was a mix of both of us, like, just wanting to, like, showcase that, like, even though we're great together, like, we can still be great, like, separately. Because I feel like a lot of people didn't, like, appreciate higher society as much as we did. So it was kind of hard to, like, seem legitimate together. So we both, like, wanted to showcase that we can do this, like, alone. Um, so yeah.
But the way I view it is that it forced an evolution.
Yes.
Where the last great evolution in wrestling to me was a very good professional wrestler, and his evolution from basically Dasher Hatfield to a very good professional wrestler, losing the mask and going out and being a very good professional wrestler.
Mhm.
I found that this and the way that ended and the way the two of you were in the ring and the betrayal and all that stuff really forced an evolution on her, and it forced an amazing evolution on you. And sometimes I feel like in wrestling that needs to happen. And so what was that like? Because it forced you to say, hey, I now have to become a singles wrestler. Because it's sometimes comforting, I feel, to be in a tag team.
Yeah, being in a tag team is super easy, like, like, if I, like, let's say I'm like, "Okay, I'm kinda tired, like, time to tag out." Can't really do that in single matches, but I think being able to, like, now be a single wrestler, it's like, now I can, like, just do me, um, I think it's pretty fun. I've been having a lot of fun just being a singles wrestler, to be honest.
Because you've had some crazy singles matches that also while you were part of in higher society. I'm just going to drop a few of them. I mean, the Mike Gamble match was insane. Nick Stapp is always fun. Becca's great, and then the Eric Johnson match was just insane.
Oh,
Eric Johnson's a big man.
yeah,
He's a big man. That's the nicest way. He apparently just followed me on Twitter, but like I think I can say that without getting in too much trouble. But he's a big man. I
yeah,
mean, no, nothing against you, but like compared to me and compared to you, he's a big man.
yeah. Um, so that the Eric Johnson match was actually supposed to be like a fatal four-way, and then
The other two competitors were smarter than you,
yep,
clearly.
clearly,
Clearly, like.
I
But what
definitely
was
tried
that
to.
like? Because even though, I mean, obviously I'm joking around, but that was a great match between you and Eric Johnson because that was insane. And because it goes back to the old trope where you have a very small wrestler up against a big wrestler, and it creates a very David Goliath, realm to it. It also forces the smaller wrestler to get more creative, and it's great. I mean, it's the idea that when you had, what was it, Eddie Guerrero versus Brock Lesnar.
Mhm.
I mean, that was brilliant. I mean, and even when you had all of these, smaller wrestlers going up against, Brock Lesnar, it was great and it was epic and it was great matchups and it was great matches. So, what was that like for you, really? Because I felt like you were thrown really into a cool spot.
Uh, I knew that like when I came out, the crowd would be like, okay, we kind of don't like him, and then only because I knew that they did like Eric Johnson. So when he came out, they were like, all right, we already know he's gonna lose. Like, I mean, I did lose, but I did put up a fight, which I didn't think anyone was thinking I could do.
Yeah, what is that like when you get to really shock a crowd and have a good time doing that? Because I think that see, this is my thing about wrestling is that right now the problem with Raw and AEW and Impact is you can get somewhat of a sense of how the match is going to end. Sometimes, if there's 8 matches, you could accurately predict 6 of them. The
Mhm.
other 2 are a coin toss. But right now with Roman Reigns, that's the problem. You don't know Roman is going to beat and remain champion. And so, who cares about that match? It's not a toss up anymore.
Yeah.
And so, at this stage, I feel like when, even if I know that somebody's going to lose and then they win, I'm like, what just happened? Or if I think it's going to be a squash match and then it goes on for 15 minutes, I'm like, okay, the person who was supposed to be broken like a twig and
Yep.
was supposed to be an easy, like, again, I'm not trying to be mean here, now actually has some fight in them. And it's like, oh, what else can Armini do here? And what else are you going to do? And the fact that he can't put you down and he actually has to put effort into it. And now we're 15 minutes into a match. It's pretty interesting that now we're getting somewhere. And
Mhm.
now I'm like, okay, what happens next? And what else can you do?
Yeah. Uh, I always like to be like a surprise candidate. Um, I never like I never like want to just do like the simple type of things. And I always like to get like a reaction out of the crowd, like good or bad. Like people are gonna like I like to have people like remember me.
See that's good too because any reaction out of a crowd is good at this point. I
Mhm.
think a lot of wrestlers actually don't understand that either. Is that it's okay not to be liked as a wrestler. It's different if the crowd doesn't like you versus in the locker room. If you
Yes.
walk into a locker room and the locker room hates you, that's a different problem. Where it's a disrespect problem. They feel you didn't pay your dues. They don't like the fact of your attitude. They don't like the fact of your work ethic. They don't find you safe in a ring. That's a different problem completely.
Mhm.
Versus if the crowd says, "Boo, you suck," right? Or that they stick their middle finger up at you, and that's different because they're not disrespecting you as a wrestler. They're disrespecting you as a heel because
Yes.
you're the heel. Which it's a weird thing to say it that way, but I think that's how I view it at least. Now I wouldn't recommend sticking a middle finger, but I think that if you boo a wrestler or you clap when they're getting suplexed. I think that's appropriate.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't care what kind of reaction I get. Like sometimes it's like I'm supposed to be the heel, but like then people cheer me and I'm like, okay, like cool. Like I'm the cool heel now. So um
And then even going beyond, beyond. We're going into beyond. I misspoke. Going beyond Limitless into beyond. What was that like? Because beyond, in my opinion, is really sort of. It's not WWE, it's not AEW, and it's not Impact, but it's up there. I mean, Beyond is a well-established promotion and is a well-respected promotion, and everybody wants to be there. Everybody wants to be in Beyond, pretty much, because
yeah.
Beyond has been a pulling ground for AEW. It's been a pulling ground for WWE for a very long time. And so, what was that like coming into Beyond? Because that's kind of a big fucking deal. I mean, WWR Plus is Beyond is part of Beyond, but it's not Beyond, if you know what I mean.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Um uh I do agree. Beyond is like one of the places that you do want to be. So I'm always just trying to be the best I can be so that, I can keep my spot.
And then obviously Beyond is they're doing uncharted territory down, south right now, which I think is brilliant. The fact that it's down there, I think it's super smart because it's still Beyond, and it's that. But they got Wrestling Open going on, and I think that's also really really smart too,
Mhm,
because there's no storyline in Wrestling Open, which is great. It's just wrestling for the most
mhm.
part, and it's great matches. And so how did you get involved in that? Because that's brand new, and you were, I think, on the first episode.
Oh, yeah, it was on the New Year's episode. Um, uh honestly, I think a lot of it
It's a
was
privilege to be there. It really is.
yeah, yeah. Um, like, helping out during when Uncharted Territory was up here, like, helped a lot. Um, and then they do this, like, sign up thing where you sign up to say, like, "Oh, like, you can do this date or that date." Um, so, yeah, you sign up or you reach out to them and, like, you get your shot, like, your chance to, like, show, like, what you can do. And then if they use you, whether, like, the crowd likes you or not, like, whatever.
Yeah, because you had some great matches. I mean, you had, I think, Jared Diaz was a match.
Mhm,
Obviously you faced Edith Surreal. That is insane. Edith Surreal is so fucking good.
mhm.
So fucking good. It's so insane that she's that good and she's so new. It's terrifying. It's terrifying. Like she's like a sponge. That's like what she is. Like this is not the right way how to describe her at all. But like the knowledge that she has and the work ethic and just how good she is. I don't know how to describe that any other way. But even getting the opportunity to face somebody like that, what was that like? 'Cause that's crazy to me. And anytime you're in the ring with Edith Surreal, I mean, you can only get better. I feel.
Yeah, um, I agree. So, like, in that match, he had me in, like, a multiple different kinds of holds. So now, like, after that match, I knew I had to, like, work on, how to try and get out of certain holds, so
Yeah, no, because and even getting the opportunity, because again, I go back to the idea that I don't know if Edith Surreal is going to ever get signed. I think she should be signed either to Impact or AEW. I don't know if WWE is the right place for her. Just on airtime, and WWE has so much talent that like it's really hard. I feel to compete and climb up the ladder right now, and NXT is a zoo, not in production value, but just the amount of good talent they have. It is really hard to get airtime. I feel in those
Mhm,
companies right now, but in AEW and in Impact, I think it's very easy to get airtime. And even to go into that, I mean, Edith Surreal, I feel for a lot of people is a bucket list wrestler to cross off that you got the opportunity to wrestle her. And so, what is that like for you, especially early on when wrestling open? is even being, tested still. I feel because I feel like the first few episodes were really a test if this concept was going to even work. And so, what
Yeah.
was that like too? Because in a lot of ways, I feel like that match was like, okay, we are really putting on good wrestling and quality wrestling, and this is one of those matches that is that.
Uh, yeah, I agree. Like the first couple of weeks were like, all right, let's like see what can happen. Um, and like for me, I was more so like, all right, like let me try to like be like a permanent like roster member just in case like it does happen to like continue on. And like I think now they're like on like week like 38 or 36, one of those. So it's been going on for like a while now, so like and I've been on quite like a few episodes.
Yeah, I mean, you had some serious crazy competition. You had a little mean Kathleen, who was very little and very mean, I might add. And her name is Kathleen. So there you go. You had Riley Shepard there. You had Gal Barclay on there. You had Prince Ahmed. I think I probably got the name wrong. Obviously, Love Doug was wrestling. I don't know what your issue is with Randy Rivera, but that's insane right there. The Kyrie Taylor match was scary. That guy's a freaking hoss.
That match was I watch that match all the time. Uh he's he's a monster.
But like the reason why I'm mentioning all of these wrestlers is that none of them are the same. Some
Yeah.
of them match up to what you are as a wrestler, and then some of them do not match that at all. And that's what's crazy about this is that some of these wrestlers they are very technical. Some of them are powerhouses. Like Tyree is a powerhouse wrestler.
Yeah.
He is not going to do a moonsault off the turnbuckle. Nothing against him. He's just not that type of wrestler. I think he probably can do it, but he's not going to do it. It'll be a rare occurrence. Is my point. But what is that like? Because you are, I feel like, getting so much better when you're facing so much diversity in wrestlers, and even just the psychological element of these wrestlers. I mean, Love Doug. There's nobody like Love Doug. I feel like in Beyond or Wrestling Open at this point, which is the way he operates as well on a psychological level. And so what was that like as well? Because it's so interesting because you've had like probably I think like 15, maybe even like 18 matches in Wrestling Open, and they're all so
All
diverse.
they're all different like people. That's what I kind of like. I like being able to like wrestle different like styles with people. Like I'm always gonna just be like me. I don't think I really have a style. I think I'm just like well-rounded. Like I would place myself in the well-rounded. But like
You'll
being
place
able,
yourself in the diva category.
yeah, yeah.
I
um,
figured I could get away with that joke.
no, yeah, like this is the diva category, and then like well-rounded. um, but yeah, being able to like wrestle people who like do have different like styles, um, it's like it's cool, but like it also like helps me to like want to elevate like if I'm not good like with technical wrestling, but I have to wrestle like a technical wrestler. It's like, all right, now when I go to training, I'm gonna be like, I want to work on like technical shit.
Do you also feel that certain people are really good at promos? I mean, I'm going to drop a name, Alec Price.
Hmm.
And I don't think you got to wrestle him in Limitless. We got to wrestle him in Wrestling Open. And Alec Price is the best shit talker in the Northeast. The best shit talker in the Southeast is AC Mack. Um, and so, what is that like too? Because even just the ring psychology of Alec Price is insane. And I mean, Alec has been on the show, and he's great. He's just freaking fantastic.
Hmm.
I'm surprised the guy isn't signed yet. I'm surprised. Every time he wrestles, I send out the same tweet every time. I say, we're all going to miss him when he gets signed.
Yeah.
We're all going to miss him when he gets signed. You could boo him, you could hate him, you could do whatever you want, but we're all going to miss him when he gets signed. But even that, what is that like for you to even be in the ring with somebody who just has such an amazing ring psychology and everything Alec Price does? And he might look like he's not doing something, but he's doing something. What is that like, even just to have that and even just see it from the opposite side?
Um,
Because that's a big part of wrestling that I think people forget
y-
exists.
yeah, Alec is amazing. Like he gets a reaction just from like doing, um, which is like he's like a great person to learn from. So like that match with him, probably is like to this day probably my favorite match because it's like, um, I feel like I don't know, it showed like a different side of like me. Like I felt like I felt like it was a test for me too. Like it was like, all right, can I stand with Alec Price? Like, can I go toe to toe with Alec Price? And like, I mean, I hope I was able to like show that I could.
So let me ask you a question because one of the things is that obviously I mentioned a few names, and I was joking about a little mean Kathleen, but she's really good, and she has been in Beyond and WWR Plus, and she's been very much a stable. Riley Shepard's been a stable. You got Alec Price, Tyree Taylor, and do you feel that at this point that you're now getting what I call legitimacy, and that people say, okay, you're here to stay, and that you're legit? And that the higher society stuff, you guys were a great team, but there was that little doubt, and now people are saying, "Oh snap, Armini is a real wrestler. He can hold his own, and he's legit," and that people are saying, "Oh snap, he can go in the ring," because there gets to a point. I mean, I've been doing podcasting for 10 years, and it's been my experience. And I feel like in the last 2 years, people are like, "Oh, I get it now. You're not a kid anymore in this industry." And that when you're getting these big guests and you're getting people and then you do an interview, you know, it's legit now. It's not a hobby for you. If
Yeah.
that makes any sense. And people respect that. They respect you in the ring and they realize that, hey, you're here to stay. You're
Hmm.
not a flash in the pan. Did you feel like that's starting to happen when you face these guys and whether you win or lose, but you're holding your own and you're putting on a great match? It was like, I get it. And now this guy is legit.
Yeah, I definitely feel like people are seeing me as a more like legit type of like wrestler. Um even with all the gaga, I feel like people like just enjoy watching me.
Because I think that's something that sometimes happens, and also sometimes people aren't viewed that way. They're not viewed in that regard, and I think it's a real issue. I think sometimes, and I think it happens a lot more than people realize, is that wrestlers don't get that quote unquote legitimacy. I think
Mhm.
Alec Price is a good example. I think in the last 2 years he has gotten the legitimate tagline. I think when he first came out, he was good, but I think that he's worked his ass off to get it, and I think that's
Yep.
what's going to happen to you in a lot of ways as well. Where I think you're getting that more and more and more, and I think it's very important. Where it's just like, oh, you're just not here for a flash in the pan. You're not a comedy act wrestler. You're
Yeah.
here to win. You're here to be a singles wrestler. You're here to put on good matches.
No, yeah, I definitely wanted to get away from like being like, the character like kind of wrestler or like the gimmick matches. Um and like show that I can be like the more like serious and like legitimate wrestler.
Yeah, and then obviously I think also what sort of started to solidify this is the match with Jay Lyons and Midas Black, and that match, and that I think that was a tag match, and they have done something that may or may not make them not so likable right now. But we don't have to talk about that. But I thought it was pretty funny. I thought it was pretty funny. It was great. It was great. Let's just call it what it was. But even just being in there with those guys too, and holding your own and having a freaking great tag match as well, showing that hey, you can do tag team wrestling too right now, and
Mhm.
obviously Johnny Rivera as well, and all that stuff. And you may or may not be a fan of him right now.
um yeah, like right now I have Randy Rivera with me. Um so it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. Let's talk about that too while we're at it. What is that like? Because it's not higher society, but obviously you got backup. You got
Mhm.
somebody watching your back. Somebody's obviously somewhat involved in your matches and is covering you and covering your 86. And so, what is that like too? Because it adds another dynamic to it, and it makes it more interesting. And kind of makes you a heel. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Obviously, with Landon Hale, it was very interesting what happened last week.
Oh, so with Randy, he's a young wrestler, who's
He's
like,
not seasoned.
yeah, yeah. So
He
I
made
felt
a
like,
mistake that he won't make again.
I feel like, um, I see the potential from Randy, so I decided to take it upon myself to
You decided to mold the
take him
clay.
under my wing.
You decided to
um,
mold the clay. You have a fresh slate in front of you, and you're going to make it in your likeness so that it
yep,
can be bestowed onto greatness
yeah.
and get you a
Like
championship in the meanwhile.
I've told the people of Wrestling Open that I think I said Randy Orton, Randy Rivera, is the future of Wrestling Open, and I'm gonna show why he's the future.
So you're going to be Prince, and he's going to be Carmen Electra. That's what you're doing.
Yeah,
see,
that's us.
I just branded you completely on this interview in a whole different way. I just elevated you to a whole new level, like in like 3 seconds, too. Like, you just change your name to a symbol now. Oh, it'd be great.
I just might.
You
It's
should
just gonna
totally
be
do
like
it.
a symbol A and then a symbol K. That's
Oh,
me.
it could be the wrestler formerly known as. I'm just saying, I'm here to make wrestlers better. That's the whole point of this show.
Yep.
That's really the point of the show, everybody, is that we're here. And what I mean by we're here, I mean I'm here just to make wrestlers better. That's all I'm supposed to do. But I did enjoy that Landon Hale match. I thought it was really, really well done. I thought it was fun. I thought that was an excellent showcase. I thought that it was a fun match. And yeah, it was in there was a mistake that won't happen again.
Oh yeah, there was a mistake that will never happen again.
You get one before you get cut. But obviously there was something else that was going on that's obviously leading to a pretty interesting feud that happened at the end of that match as well. So what was that like? Because that was excellent wrestling planning in of itself. The way that thing ended after Landon Hale beat you.
So the whole golf situation. I guess he's mad. I mean, I did take his Randy and Gall used to tag, and I was gonna take both of them under my wing, but only Randy came, so I don't see why he would be mad at us. Uh, but I will give him points. Well played for making us think that he was on our side.
I mean, there's just so much potential now that can happen. Obviously there's going to be a clash because everybody settles their problem in a ring, one way or another. And so, yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that could be played out. There could be that whole thing where two teachers and two people who were sort of now competing for the future of Wrestling Open, and oh man, the potential of this is just fantastic. It puts you in such a cool spot. It really does. There's just so much stuff that can be done with this. Man, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. What's going to happen? And so obviously that's fun. And then obviously the last match I want to talk about before we get to talk about the Bella Twins is that's the fun part of this show is being part of Effie's Big Gay Brunch. And I didn't know they were actually up to 5. I did not realize they were up to 5 at this point. I saw 1, and I mean like the first one, but damn, I didn't realize they were at 5. I thought they were like at 3. Wow, just I mean, is that like every year only once, or do they do like then like twice a year now? Like I don't even know. I'm so confused. I didn't realize it was like
I
5 years
honestly
old.
don't
Like
know.
I feel old now. It's like it's bad. It's like it's really bad.
I honestly don't know.
I'm confused, clearly. But all seriousness, though, what was this like? Because obviously Effie was on this show / my old show, and before he started getting big, and I think it's pretty cool. I think it's a cool concept. I think it's the idea that if they won't let you play in the park, build your own, right?
Yeah.
You build it better. I think that representation is important. I think that it's showcasing a lot of really cool people who may or may not get that opportunity. Um, and look, and also what it might do is that it might give somebody that extra boost they need to get onto a Beyond or
Mhm.
get onto, a Limitless, or I can't think of like another, or a GCW is another platform. And so, what was this like for you? Because it is sort of a big deal. It is a big platform, and I feel like it's a well-established platform that people respect, both within the LGBTQ community and outside and in wrestling community. And I think it's very important that if you're on there, it does give you that boost. And
Yeah.
and maybe that's not the most politically correct thing to say, but I think that's the only way it could be said.
No, I agree with you, like, I think the brunch is, like, an amazing, like, opportunity to showcase, like, wrestlers that probably won't get, like, a chance, like, just anywhere else, uh, just because,
Or,
whatever.
or, or even just to make their path a little bit easier.
Yeah, yeah, like, it helps, like, people be seen, um, just because of the name. So, like, for me, I, like when I found out that I was gonna be a part of it, like, I was super, like, "Oh my god," like
How did you did you just be like, hey, can you make it out to Chicago? Like, was it like a phone call? Was it like a text message? You're
Uh,
like,
I found out from MSP. They were like, "Hey, like, we're gonna drive up there, like, do you want like, you and Aaron Work are gonna be on there. Do you guys wanna come with us, like, drive together?" And we were like, "Oh, shit," like, "Yeah." Um, but then I flew out there, the Wednesday just to, like, why not make it a vacation?
so so you found out by MSP,
Yes.
and it was like, oh, this is what I don't understand. Like, to me, and look, I'm not a wrestler. I've never been booked on a wrestling show, but like, is that usually how that works, or like, who was like supposed to be doing, like that to me just seems so like weird, like how you found out. Like,
Um,
I can't fathom it. Like, I can't understand it. Is my point.
I mean, that's not usually how it works, but, like, that's just how it happened. Um, like, he did reach out to me a couple days later saying, like, whatever, but, like, I already knew. Um, but I think it was more so MSP lives in Maine, and, like, their way to, like, get here, they had to pick up Aaron work, and then I'm, like, not too far from there. So it's like, let's just get, like, a carload of people who live from this area, so, like,
Yeah, yeah. Let's even talk about that, because I think most of your matches have taken place pretty much in New England, and I
Yeah.
don't think that you've been on like a 25-hour car ride down somewhere, right?
No, I
For
haven't.
the most part, so far, right? And so what was that like when, because Limitless is in Maine, right? And are you in Maine or are you in Massachusetts?
I'm in Massachusetts.
So how far was Limitless? Like less than 6 hours, give or take.
Yeah, it was about probably, like, 3.
So you get where I'm going with this question, right?
Mhm.
So what was this like really going on? I guess your first technical wrestling road trip, right? Like,
So
because this is one of the things that I think people don't understand, is that when you're an indie wrestler, or even when you're in WWE, you might have to drive 12 hours,
mhm.
over, a day and a half to venue, from one venue to the next. And you could be on the road. And so whoever you're driving with, you better make sure that they also drive, or they can keep you company, or that they're doing something, or that you switch. Because let's be realistic, if you're driving, to Chicago from Maine, it's a bitch of a trip.
Yeah. So we actually ended up, like, taking a plane. So we didn't actually drive the I think it was gonna be 18 hours. Um,
Oh, so you didn't
like
want to tough it out. That's how we play it. You didn't want to have the experience. You didn't
I
want to
mean,
have
I
the
was
full
down to
body.
drive. I don't mind road trips, like, just driving to, like, New York and stuff, like, I like to do it. Um, I don't like to be the driver,
If
but I
New
like to
York is
be
a
in the
road trip for you from Maine, we got a problem. We got a problem. New York from Maine is not that bad. I'm not saying it's a cakewalk, but it's not that bad. That's not a road trip. That's like a nice Sunday.
Mm,
I think we're back, right?
okay.
I was just saying that New York from Maine to New York isn't a road trip. Maine to Chicago is a road trip.
Okay, yeah, I agree.
Maine to New York is a pain in the ass of a drive, but it's not a road trip. That's all I'm gonna say. But anyhow, I digress. Continue, please.
Um, Forgot what I was saying.
Just even to talk about the brunch, though. I mean, what was this like too? Because obviously it reaches a lot of people, and it's kind of whenever you say, "Hey, oh, I'm involved in Effie's Big Gay Brunch," everybody knows what it is. You're on the show. It adds credibility, I feel, and then you're also saying who else was on the card, and then you got all these top people in the industry on the card, and it's a big event in Chicago, and it's a big deal. And so, what was that like? Because, and it's also GCW, I think, does it, right?
Yeah.
And so, what was that like? Because it's kind of, a big deal. And it's also, the other thing is that it's, I think, like 13 or 14 bucks. It might even be more. So, the people who see it, they actually pay extra for it versus being on IWTV. And it is a little expensive, you know, 14, 15 bucks for a pay per view for, maybe a 4 hour event. It's not unreasonably expensive, but you have to pay more than that. It's not like watching Beyond. You pay your $100 on IWTV and then you get Beyond for 52 weeks.
Mhm. Um, I was mm, I loved the experience. Like, I came out and, like, I was like, "Oh, shit, there's, like, a lot of people there's, like, a lot of people here." Um, but that just, like, motivated me to, like, actually, like, leave my mark and, like, have people, like, wanna remember me. And, like, I remember, like, going on Twitter after and was like, "Oh, shit, like, there are a lot of, like, people, like, mentioning me right now." So that was, like, really cool.
Yeah, no, because I think more than anything else, I think the real value of it as a wrestler, and especially if you are an LGBTQ wrestler, um, I think the real value is the exposure is worth more than whatever paycheck you're gonna get. I really believe that, and I mean that's just my take looking at this, looking at it more from a journalistic position. That the exposure and the boost you're going to get and the attention you're going to get is worth way more than any money you're going to make. And that's the thing. Sometimes exposure is worth more than paychecks because
Yeah.
well, a lot of people now know who you are partially because of that. I think a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
people know you from Wrestling Open as well now, and I think it's safe to say that Effie's Big Gay Brunch, while you were doing Wrestling Open before that, it might have had an effect on you being a roster player on Wrestling Open because now you're becoming a bigger player and not a bigger platform. And I think it's something
Mhm.
that a lot of wrestlers don't understand. I think a lot of
N
people in the entire indie comic book world, which is what I'm from, also don't understand that when you're on bigger platforms, you get attention, and that's how things go. So that's just my view on it. I could be wrong. I could be wrong because I'm not. That's just how I view it, looking in versus looking out.
No,
But
I agree with you.
you can tell me I'm wrong. It's perfectly fine. People do it
No,
all the time.
no, trust me, if I thought you were wrong, I would say, "Yeah, no, I don't think so."
But yeah, no, it's super interesting your career. But obviously, I do want to talk about the Bella twins. So how do you think she's doing on AGT?
Actually, uh, I actually haven't watched it.
I haven't watched it either, so clearly,
Oh.
you know what it is. After she like destroyed John Cena's heart, I was just like, oh, this is bad. This is not good. They had such a good moment. I mean, he was willing to give her everything, and it just wasn't enough. was so devastated. I'm still like heartbroken.
N I'm always team Nikki Bella. So it's like I see like why she did what she did. Um,
I mean, I get it. And look, I mean, let's be realistic about John Cena. If we're going to really call it out, he had probably not the easiest childhood. He obviously has certain values on how he was raised, and that influences him in if he wants to become a parent and all that stuff, and he's concerned about some other things. And when you have, you're worth a lot of money, things are complicated because, well, you got to protect yourself and you want to protect, your kid if you have one, but you don't want to be wiped off the map if something goes awry. And there's fair concerns, I think. And I think with her and where she's at right now, I think the guy she's with and the guy she has a kid with, I don't think she has the same concerns.
mhm.
It's super complicated, but I'm not a marriage counselor, at least not yet. Um, hey, never say never is all I'm gonna say. Um, but yeah, no. I mean, this is one of the things though is that obviously you really like the Bella twins.
Yeah.
I think the Bella twins are fantastic. I think they were much needed for WWE when they were in WWE. You and one of your moves was Death by Bella twins, or Death by Bella. I thought it was great. I still think it's great. I mean, it's hilarious. It's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so it was actually Ava Everett and Davian who came up with the move. Um,
Of course, they've ever came
and
up.
they were
Well, of
like,
course, you did.
yeah, they just came up to me and was like, "All right, Death by Bella Twin," and then they showed me a clip of like what the move was, and I was like, "I'm doing that."
Because I think that's also another thing is that everybody knows who the Bella twins are. Everybody knows certain divas and certain female wrestlers. It's just the way it is.
Mhm.
And so when everybody knows who Nikki Brie Bella is, everybody knows who Alexa Bliss is, everybody knows who Becky Lynch is, and everybody knows who Charlotte and Sasha are. And there's a few others that people know. But mainstream, I think everybody knows who Mandy Rose is in wrestling. And so when you have a move that has Bella twins in it, and then it's announced on commentary, it also raises, and I think it instantly connects. And that's another thing too. It creates a sense of familiarity, I feel,
Mhm.
and I think that's absolutely brilliant. There's a reason why people brand things a certain way, and I think whether it was intentional as a brand or not, I think that you hit upon a very interesting position where I think it really creates a sense of familiarity. And when I'm like, oh man, Death by Bella Twins, I'm like, oh snap, I know who the Bella Twins are. What's this move? And then
Yeah.
you see it, and then you look at it, and you see them doing it, and like, oh, I get it. I get it. It's kind of like when somebody does a code breaker on the indie scene. You instantly think of Chris Jericho.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I have quite a few moves where it's like you see it and it's like, okay, I know who that's from. Um, I just like to incorporate like just like diva moves into like the moves that I do. So like the
No,
rear view.
I think it's smart. I think it's epic. I think it's smart. I think it's really a good idea. And I think that I think whether again intentional or not, it really does create a very interesting branding and a sense of hey, I know what that is. Um, it's very important, I feel, in that regard. So speaking about the Bella Twins, I mean, there is one match we all want. We want Lita and Trish Stratus versus Brie and Nikki. We all want that match. I mean, come on, tell me you don't want that match.
I I would pay money to watch that match.
I mean, come on, at WrestleMania, you put that thing as the main event on night one. Oh my fucking god, you're gonna freaking sell everything out. No. Let me explain really quickly. T-shirts. That's it. That's the whole plan. The amount of T-shirts that you can sell of those four women will make those four women very, very wealthy,
You're
very
not
quickly.
wrong. You're
You
not
you will
wrong.
sell $1 million for each of those women, in which you will sell $4 million worth of T-shirts in that week alone
Yeah.
with ease. With ease, it wouldn't even. And I have stock in WWE, so I am totally for this. because it will affect the stock price just naturally. In fact, it will have to create sweatshops in like Indonesia to fulfill orders. I mean, clearly we're going to have to do something bad to get something good here, but that's not the point. We have to make sacrifices, preferably somewhere else.
Yeah, like I feel like developers are like they have like a following, and like Trish and Lita, like they also do have a following. So like to have them four in a match, it would be like it'd be crazy.
I'm just saying, we all want it. We all want it. Hell, we could put, toxic attraction in that match too, and we can get old school versus modern versus the future. And we have a freaking banger right there. I'm just saying, we can do it, and it'll be great. And then we'll get Molly Holly as the ref.
I'm dying.
Clearly somebody should be booking this. I
Hey,
mean,
you gotta send a letter.
I live in Connecticut. Yeah, I should just show up and be like, "Here's what we're doing, guys."
Just show up and be like, "Hey, listen, I got an idea."
It's not an idea. We're doing it. That's the end of it. That's the plan here. But I actually, I have a few more questions because I do want to back out of your career, and I'm actually curious how you do wrestling because that's the most interesting thing. Where do you think women's wrestling is going? Because I think women's wrestling has gotten really, really fucking good lately. I think Impact has done a great job with it. I think WWE is half and half on it. I think sometimes they hit it perfectly, and sometimes they miss. And they miss hard. I mean, like, let's be realistic. Bianca Belair has had a sort of half and half, I feel, as champion, where some of her feuds have been great, like the Becky Lynch stuff has been great, but some of the stuff I feel has missed. And it's not due to talent, it's due to just booking.
Yeah.
And same thing with Liv Morgan. I think some of Liv Morgan has hit, and I think some of it has missed. I think the Ronda Rousey pop was one of the best things this year in wrestling. I really do, because it was great. The fact that she cashed in, I mean, that pop was so beautiful in so many ways. But then she's going up against Shayna Baszler, and something missed, and her booking isn't great right now. But I think Impact is doing a great job with this. I think the Cell Shaw and Mickey James match was really, really, really good match. And so I'm curious how you view it, because obviously as a women's wrestling fan, as a Bella Twins fan, and obviously getting in because of Total Divas, I mean, I'm curious how you view it, and even where it's going. And on the indie scene, I think it's some of the best it's ever been.
So I think right now, like, women's wrestling is at an all-time high. Like, I think like people, like, before people didn't really care for it, but now people can see that, like, women's wrestling is actually pretty good. Like I like legit only watch women's wrestling, and like I will watch like the guys wrestle here and there, but like I primarily watch like the girls wrestle. So it's like like what you said, like with WWE, it's like right now they are kind of in like a weird like
they're hitting the target half the time.
Yeah, it's like weird. Like
it has nothing to do with talent; it has to do with booking.
Yeah.
It's just because sometimes, and I think you'll agree with me, there's just somebody who should not be wrestling. And it's not a woman thing, it's not a man thing. There are men who should not be wrestling, and there are women who should not be wrestling. They are not safe, they are not good at it. They cannot convince a crowd, and they cannot sell anything, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Like Ava Everett can sell anything. She could sell anything. She could come out with clown makeup and she could sell it. And I mean, Ava Everett was the girls' room, and then she went to art. I mean, those are the opposite sides, and both work. But there are wrestlers who can't sell jack shit.
Yeah, I agree.
And again, they should not be wrestlers. Much as I love Summer Rae is not good at selling things. I'm sorry to say it, but Eve Marie is not good at selling things. Eve Marie is great. She's great as a manager. She's not good as a wrestler.
I don't know if I want to say anything here.
Oh, you can disagree. You're more than welcome to disagree.
So I don't know. Like
Tennille
I think
Dashwood is amazing as a wrestler, was booked like shit in WWE.
oh, who are we talking about?
Emma
Oh,
in
Emma, yes.
that last match that she had against Asuka, that was legit. That was saying go, and she should have been kept, and they should have just said, I mean, Tennille Dashwood in Impact is killing it.
Yeah.
She's great. Because, again, you let her do her thing, she's going to slay dragons. But she was
Mhm.
booked like shit, which means that she couldn't do anything. And that's the problem with WWE, I feel.
Yeah,
Impact,
I agree.
they actually have a concept.
Um, I don't know, I think, like, once, like, because I heard it was more so, like, they were trying to give her, like, a diva kinda character, and she didn't really wanna do that. Which, like, if that's not you, like, that's not you, like, I wouldn't wanna force someone to do something they don't wanna do.
Yeah, no, it's tricky. It's tricky because the second you come into the WWE, you know, you might have to eat shit for a little bit to get what you want. Look at Bailey, right? Bailey was a hugger, and now Bailey is, I'm just gonna punch you in the face,
Yeah.
and it works, and it's great. And she's like, I'm forming my own faction, and we're coming for every freaking title. So screw it. We're coming for every title, and we want to run this division, and it's great. And you know what? Bailey should go after the Raw Women's Champion and the SmackDown, and they should unify it under Bailey. Seriously, if you think about it, it makes sense. It really does. And then you got the tag belts, and now you have that faction pretty much on Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah. Um, I think, like, the past couple of weeks, like, not the SmackDown, the Raw's women's division has been, like, amazing, and then it's like, you watch the SmackDown girls, and it's like, "Oh, wait,
Yeah,
something's
and
missing here."
who's the only guy on Raw who's actually doing his job well? There's only one. Yeah, I mean, it's not that hard of an answer, guys. The only person who's doing a good job on Raw right now is Seth Rollins.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say.
Seth Rollins is the only person on Raw in the men's division who's doing a good job.
Mhm.
It's really, really bad. It's not good. Actually, that's not true. Is Drew McIntyre on Raw? Because Drew McIntyre does a good job always too. But
Is he on Raw?
he might no, he might be on SmackDown. He might be on SmackDown. But if he was on Raw, he'd be doing a good job too.
Mhm.
But just because Drew McIntyre always does a good job. But Seth Rollins is the only guy on Raw doing a good job, and then Edge is on Raw, and Edge is doing a pretty good job too. But those two are really the only people who are doing a great job on Raw. So that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, it's weird.
You could put Seth Rollins in a cast and leave him on the shelf for 6 months and just have him do backstage promo stuff, and he'll still do a better job than half the men's roster. It's so bad. And Matt Riddle's doing an okay job too, but that's not the point here. The women's division is like saving that freaking company right now. It's
Mhm.
not even funny anymore. It's whatever. I digress. Clearly, I don't watch as much Monday Night Raw as I should because it's not good. It's not good. I
Yeah.
watch the highlights.
No, yeah.
11 minutes is a hell of a lot better than 3 hours.
The NXT division isn't too bad.
I know. I'm super stoked about it. I'm a big card collector, and the
Mhm.
NXT card set is freaking awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in NXT. I'm like, "Ooh, okay."
Yeah. No, NXT is great right now, and NXT is pretty good. I mean, I just don't know what they're gonna do with Braun and Mandy. I don't know what they're gonna do with those two because Mandy Rose has become Roman Reigns' problem, and
Yeah, it's like,
Braun is not at
who's
that
gonna
level
win?
yet, but he's getting there. And then what do you do?
Hey, I think they're just gonna have her drop the title and come up to the main roster.
I don't know though if she wants to, because let's be realistic. In NXT, you don't travel that much. She lives in Florida. She's probably making not that much more money on the main roster. She's probably going to lose money on the main roster. Because
Okay.
guess what? If your commute to NXT is an hour and you only have to show up there 3 days a week, it's not that bad.
Yeah, yeah.
Her house is in Florida. Like seriously, like if that's the whole thing. I mean, I just started a new job and I only have to go into the office 2 days a week, and it's going to drop down to 1 day a week. So my commute sucks, but it's only 1 day a week.
Yeah.
So my job isn't horrible. People say, "Oh, your commute's 104 miles, round trip," but I'm only doing it 1 day a week. So now, if you divide that over 5 days, it's a lot less. It's
Not too
like
bad.
miles, 19 and a half miles. So my point that I'm getting at, or maybe it's 20.5 miles, but my point is that that's what I think about her. I don't think she wants to come up. I don't.
We just have to
Gigi
see.
should come up to the main roster.
Who?
Gigi Don, Priscilla Kelly.
Oh,
Priscilla Kelly should go up to the main roster. It was Gigi Don because
they
Priscilla Kelly is fucking good.
they've been on SmackDown a couple times, so
But I digress. This is a whole big thing. I like talking wrestling with wrestlers because it actually is fun. It's a whole different ballgame.
yeah, yeah.
But I digress. Obviously Landon Hale's coming on right after you in like 30 minutes. So I don't know if you have any time words for him. I'm
Ooh.
not even joking. I'm dead serious.
Oh boy. Well,
I know he just like destroyed his hand apparently. It's crazy.
yeah, I think he broke his wrist over the weekend.
I
So,
know, I know, I know. He was in a pretty interesting match. I mean, but yeah, no. In all seriousness, though, I mean, what is next for you? Because that's what I want to know, and that's what I think a lot of people want to know is what is next for you? Because I think you're going to be in wrestling open for a while.
yeah.
I know you have at least a few more weeks of matches scheduled, if not a hell of a lot more. But
Um,
where are you wrestling outside of that too? Because I don't think that's the only place you wrestle. And where are you going to be? What can you announce? What's coming down in the works? Because people want to see you wrestling. People want to see you, in the ring, and it's kind of fun. And you're starting to gain a lot of traction.
I think for me, what's next is just like just being able to like wrestle like everywhere that I can. Um, I really want to like travel outside of the New England area. Um, and then like for chaotic wrestling, I'm on my road to 301 days, um, as the Panoptic champion. Uh, I
See,
became champion.
I don't know anything about that. And which I don't know you from chaotic. Like I'm so uneducated on this. Like it's terrible. It's just terrible.
No,
But
yeah, I won the Panoptic championship in July. Um, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna become the Nikki Bella champion. So my goal is to be champion for 301 days. Um, she actually tweeted me about it, and like now I'm like even more motivated to do it.
that's kind of funny. So what is that like for you though to hold that belt? Because obviously when you hold a belt, you know, you're representing the company and you're defending that title and you're attempting to make it mean something. That's something that I think sometimes with certain belts, people don't realize that you have to make the belt mean something. So if you
Yeah.
get the 301 days, or even you get the 350 days, or even you get the 200 days, you've added some prestige to that belt. And so, what is that like? Because it is a responsibility, I feel.
Um, no, like I'm always like nervous. Like I just want to show people like that this belt is just as important as all the other titles on Chaotic. Like, um, and that like, me holding it is like I hope that people can see that like, I'm here. Like
Isn't it also the idea that if you hold it for 301 days and somebody beats you on 302 days, that that means that you've set a bar for how they have to run that championship.
Mhm.
And I think this is something that some people in wrestling get. And even going back to AG, it's the idea that if you lift somebody up or you give them a spot, you have to understand that there's a generation behind you that you have to give them their opportunity too. And if you're in a position to give back and build the next generation and sort of foresight, I feel as well. and
Yeah.
also with the title adding a level of prestige to it, because people could be selfish in wrestling, they could be selfish in life, but sometimes you have to give people an opportunity that so that they can then expand and they get another layer onto them. So what is that like for you? Because I feel like if you're on that road, and it's a long road, but even if you only get 150 days, you added that level where whoever beats you, actually you had a bunch of title defenses under your belt.
Mhm. Um, I don't know. I just want to prove that, like,
You just want to hold the belt for 301 days. You don't really care about anything else. You're just like, I'm Nikki Bella in it, and that's the end of this discussion. You don't really care. Like,
I'm
you're just
yep,
like,
I'm the Nikki Bella champion.
the name on the belt is Nikki right there, right? Like,
Hey, maybe I probably did name it Nikki.
that's great. That's fantastic. It's just fantastic. But no, that's something that I think is very interesting as well. But yeah, so where could people actually like go watch your matches? Obviously, Wrestling Open is big. I don't know if you're going to be on this Thursday. I don't know if that was announced or if you're taking a week off, or what's going to happen. I don't know how many more wrestling openings there are going to be, but I'm sure you're going to be periodically there, if
Yeah.
not there every week. Chaotic Wrestling, I don't know when they run, because they're not on IWTV, at least not streaming wise.
No, they stream on Twitch.
Yeah, see, it's so confusing to me. It's so confusing. I don't know where everybody streams. It's so weird. Now I'm
Um,
gonna have to go follow him on Twitch because I'm gonna have to now go see you defend this belt a bunch. And tweet about it. Um, but yeah, like where can people find you? What's coming up? All that fun stuff. Where can people bother you on social media? Engage with you? Wait
um,
for you. Buy your merch. That's a big one.
yeah, I have merch on Pro Wrestling Tees. And then whenever I'm like places, I bring some t-shirts. Um, and then like with Wrestling Open, like I'll be there. There's
Gonna
chaotic.
be there. Just show up. If
Yeah, I'll be there.
I don't have a match, we'll make a match.
Um, and then my social medias are just my name.
Yeah, so, and obviously, I mean, I'm sure you tweet about where you're gonna be,
Yeah.
where you're wrestling, what's going on, where
Yeah,
people
when
can
things
find
come
the
up.
merch, all that stuff. So Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. Obviously, if people want to find you and engage with you and tweet about you when you're wrestling, you're more than happy to go do that. I'm sure that
Mhm.
you would appreciate it. I like when I interact with wrestlers. It's always a good time. I think it's actually very cool at this stage that we get to do that. And even going further, obviously wrestling is a complicated business. And wrestling, you need to go to shows. It is the bottom line. You need to go and buy tickets to go
Mhm.
see people wrestle. And then even if you don't want to buy a ticket, you need to buy wrestlers' shirts and their gear and their prints and all their fun stuff because while they do get paid to wrestle, the shirts do supplement their income. And when you're traveling a lot and things like that, that really does help to pay for gas and other things. And it's a big deal. And also, you need to follow these wrestlers as well, and you need to tweet and engage with them because that tells promoters and promotions and companies that, hey, we like this wrestler. And it is very, very important, I think, that there's an engagement between fans and wrestlers and tweeting about it. Because guess what? If you're wrestling and 10,000 people are tweeting about you, that lets a bunch of other people say, oh, who's this guy? And what is he doing that there's 10,000 people saying this is awesome?
Yeah.
So I think that that's the other thing too is that it does go a long way, and even a retweet. And also, it's not that hard, and it's fun. If you think that Armini is being not a great wrestler and is a horrible heel, you should let him know and say you cheated in the ring. And if you get a response back and it's snarky, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. But remember that that's good for business. Is all I'm going to say. So and it's fun. And wrestling Twitter is fun. I think that's something that people have forgotten. People say Twitter is a cesspool. I disagree. I think Twitter is a fun place.
I think
In
it's
wrestling,
fun.
I think it's a great place. If you don't do anything serious on Twitter and you just have fun engaging with wrestlers, it's a great place and it's a fun place to be. So that's all I'm going to say on that point. As far as I'm concerned, I appreciate people subscribing to my YouTube channel, Pop Anime Comics. Check me out on Twitter. Check me out on Facebook, Instagram. It's all Pop Anime Comics. I got tons of interview stuff up there. I probably got 400 interviews. So if you really want to keep yourself busy for the next probably 6 months, I got you covered. Across the board, voice actors, wrestlers, cosplayers, comic writers, the occasional author here and there, and some other cool content is up there as well. So whole basket case of cool stuff is coming, as well as if you want to support the show, you could buy me a coffee. It's kind of like Patreon, but it's only a one-time payment, and you can pick whatever you want to throw at me. It's not necessary, but if you find anything interesting on this show, where you say, hey, I like where the show goes, I like the fact that you're doing A, B, C, and D, you're more than welcome to support me there as well. And I do have a comic book class coming. Unfortunately, it was supposed to come out on October 5th. It got delayed because I had a computer issue. We are looking at the end of October. But if you want to learn how to invest in comic books and learn the basics, my class is for you. Again, it's going to be about $40 on Udemy. It's looking at 18 to 22 hours. So it is a hell of a class. It's pretty much a college class. So it's like you just don't get credit for it.
Yeah.
So that's everything that's going on with me. And I got a bunch of other sponsor links up in the description up above, as well as I do have your Pro Wrestling Tees link up there too. So obviously, that's all I'm going to say is that you need to support wrestlers and you need to support indie content creators because it does go a long way. And supporting, it is following on social media, but it's also financially supporting. And look, again, I don't care if you don't support my show, but if you like Armani and you like what he's doing and you like what he's doing in the ring, you should be supporting. If you don't like what he's doing in the ring, but you like another wrestler, you should be supporting that, is all I'm going to say. But if you don't support and then that shit disappears, don't come bitching to me. And on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
Yeah, I agree. Support.
Well, I don't think I could have said that any better myself. So everybody, that is a wrap.